Hey everyone, welcome to the Remedy This podcast. We are your hosts, Jay and Tempest, and we got another good episode for you, so let's jump right in.
Let's jump right in, yes. So, Control Resonant has gone gold, ready to rock and roll.
That's awesome.
But here's the not awesome part, and I'm sure most of our listeners already know this. The physical copy is being delayed until October 15th.
That's bull.
Oh gosh. Well, it's hard on us content creators when you pre-order the physical copy and then realize later, or at least are informed later that you also have to buy the digital. So, if you want to make content. So yeah, if we have to do that so we're not like 3 weeks. Is it like what, 3 weeks behind? Cuz it comes out September 24th. So, yeah, big news that a lot of people are sad about, some angry maybe like you. But yeah, so that's the thing. That's the big new thing right now is unfortunately.
Yeah, I know we were going to do the 48-hour gameplay of Control in anticipation.
It's a 24-hour marathon.
The marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so because we were super excited about getting the Steelbook, and they have those art prints and everything in there. But yeah, that just sucks that they're going to be delaying that.
Right. So we're going to have to rethink our whole Control gameplay, our live streams for the, first Control game. We'll still do it, but it might just take place in different increments and different times, but it will be pretty consistent. But anyway, so our main subject today. Mm-hmm. The nostalgia department.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
We have talked about this before, and anyone who's followed us on social media, well, at least on X, in the past, we have, talked about it on there too, what the nostalgia department actually is and why Trench had to take the slide projector there. So we've asked these questions in the past, but we have read some information from the art and design book. What gave me that idea is one of our listeners had chimed in with some information that they got from that book. And it was like, oh, okay, we actually have that book, so maybe we should put it to use. Mm-hmm. So we did. And so, Jay, you want to go ahead and read that section?
Yeah. The first caption from Leonardo Calamati says, "This is one of my favorite pieces. To me, this piece best represents the concept of the hiss itself, a presence manifesting through the lighting and motion of the corrupted environment. In the early phases of development, the final fight would have taken place just behind this door." In the second caption by Leonardo Calamati, it says, "When designing the location of the astral projector, I worked together with a visual effects team to envision a place where shifting has gone completely wild, and the hiss presence is overwhelming. This piece was one of the last few concepts ever done for the game." Nostalgia Department. World Design. The Nostalgia Department serves as ground zero for the hiss's invasion of the oldest house. This is where Trench, as director, activated the stolen slide projector and opened a gateway to the hiss dimension. The result was an overpowering resonance that prevented Jesse from entering the department's chaotic and shifting interior until the game's climactic mission. Although the Nostalgia Department is a key location in the story, Stuart McDonald explains that the team originally had much larger plans in mind for this enigmatic section of the oldest house. The sectors initially consisted of executive, maintenance, research, and containment, but we also had the concept of nostalgia being another standalone sector. The idea was that the Bureau was actively trying to keep certain things alive in the collective awareness, certain concepts they deemed necessary to preserve in order to help protect us from paranatural forces. Further expanding on the Nostalgia Department's role within the Bureau, McDonald says, "Director's service weapon is an object of power, and for it to maintain its power, people need to think of a gun when they think of a weapon. So, the concept was that maybe the Nostalgia Department is responsible for continually airing reruns of old Western movies to keep this archetypal representation alive in the public's awareness. Or maybe the department's purpose is to monitor the collective subconscious and figure out what may potentially create an object of power. It goes both ways. I thought that there should be an entire division dedicated to that. As a sector, it didn't quite make the cut, but the idea is still very much present, even though you don't get to see it in its entirety."
Yeah, I definitely agree that that department is an enigma for sure. Like, we have all theorized about it, but it often gets forgotten. I don't hear many people talk about it, even though we've mentioned it on the show. Like, why there? Why did he take it there? Whatever. We haven't really got any feedback on that.
Yeah, we really haven't. And yeah, I know we kind of speculated a little bit of what it could be used for. I mean, like, just the name of it being nostalgia department. Like, yeah, what kind of objects would they have in there that they would be studying?
Yeah.
I mean, like with nostalgia, it could vary from person to person. So yeah, we'd kind of speculated. Yeah, is that the reason why they had the slide projector, since it is essentially for nostalgia purposes?
Yeah, memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that we had talked about it a little bit amongst ourselves too, and why he would take it there. And it's like, okay, is there something about the department itself, or about the research they do in there? And it sounds like maybe a little bit of both, you know. But what comes to my mind is nostalgia core,
Right.
and the rerunning of the old Western movies. To keep that nostalgia alive. So like, say if you walk in there and it is like a nostalgia core thing and everything is like retro, back to like, honestly, when you think about it, the whole entirety of the oldest house is nostalgic in a way. All old school, everything,
Yeah, because they even have signs on there like no modern technology. Yeah,
Right.
you look and it's all like either old school computers or typewriters, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Everything is old school in there. So it's kind of nostalgic in and of itself, the oldest
Right.
house. But what they do in the nostalgia department, it sounds like they are doing types of research or setting up situations that, and I like how they talk about the collective awareness. So now we're not talking, they did talk about collective unconscious later, but collective awareness, I think it's different from everything else they've talked about in the game. So it's like a whole different, I guess, field of science. They have to create new fields of science. But I don't know, it seems like to me maybe it is the whole department, and like they talk about keeping things alive, right? It said about keeping things alive. So maybe those memories maybe that's where, we know the the slide projector works in other places. We know the slidescape works in dimensional research, and it, obviously it worked in the nostalgia department. And like you said before, in ordinary, of course.
Yeah.
But since all the slides were burned, they only had the one to work with. But I wonder what would happen if they had taken, like, say, maybe, I don't know, they had taken whatever else they had. Like, remember how they were bringing in slides from home? I wonder if they took those to the nostalgia department instead of dimensional research, if they would have worked in there.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I know that when they put in the other slides that weren't originally from the slide projector, nothing happened. There wasn't any portals opened up or anything. So yeah, I would be curious, and I wonder if that is the reason why Trench specifically took it to the nostalgia department.
Yeah, like he definitely had his reason. It just was never stated clearly as to why.
Yeah.
And since we can't go in there, and that's kind of, it's nice for them to explain that it was originally going to be an entire sector of its own. Then we probably would have had, we definitely would have had a lot more information.
Yeah.
As to, what was in there, what was going on in there, and what could have caused the slide projector to, work that way in there with a burned slide. So we're not talking about just that it works. We're talking about how it worked with a burnt slide. So if part of the whole idea behind the nostalgia department, or at least what goes on in there, is keeping memories alive, and even though that's partially burned, maybe it was able to keep parts of it, or to read some of it, or read enough of it to create something from it.
One thing I thought was interesting when it talks about monitoring the collective subconscious and figure out what may potentially create an object of power. I mean, does this mean that the board has no hand in creating the service weapon? Or did the board use the collective subconscious in forging the service weapon? Or are they referring to other objects of power, such as the slide projector?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that since the board originally presented the service weapon to Northmore on that pedestal, it's hard to say as far as like forging it.
Yeah.
But then we had talked a little bit about like the form it takes on could be director specific.
Yeah.
Because Arish said to Jesse, he's like, yeah, I've seen the service weapon before. He's like, but it looked different. Did you mod it?
Yeah.
So maybe it's, tailored to the director.
Yeah, I think that's a really good take.
We don't really find any documents about the nostalgia department on its own, right?
No, not that I remember.
As many times as I've played the game, I don't remember coming across anything that talks about it. I mean, it is kept a puzzle. It is kept a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the only things that we're left, and it's shifted. And like the entrance and everything inside is all shifted. It's the only thing that doesn't shift back, I think. Do you remember any part of the game where the room doesn't shift back?
No, I don't remember.
She can cleanse the control points, and then when she does, everything in a certain radius shifts back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the nostalgia department, it's cleansed of the hiss, but yeah, it stays in it has the same shape.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't ever go back. Mm-hmm. So we can never go. I remember when I first played the game, I'm like, yes, now I can go look in that department and get there. Never mind. Yeah. So it's just kept a secret locked away from us. And I hope that they talk more about it in Resonant.
Yeah, I do too.
I hope we can see something. You know what I mean? It sounds like Dylan's going to be busy. Mm-hmm. Sounds like he's going to be too busy to go around in the nostalgia department. But I hope that we can at least learn some more about it. Maybe through documents or something. Because I want to know. I mean, my theory right now is just that whatever about the nostalgia department, if they're trying to keep memories alive or the past alive or whatever, that's part of what, how the burnt slide was able to work.
Yeah,
what allowed it to work. As long as there was something in there, like when you don't have a whole memory, like, the memory repression therapy that they do.
Yeah.
And the idea is that, like, it will repress your memory, but, later you can regain it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it's a different thing, but like maybe a similar concept, like just having part of that memory, and then maybe there's whatever about it can help, bring it, or maybe like the user themselves with their own beliefs helps bring about, the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know they said in Resonant that Dylan is able to go back into the oldest house and kind of explore around. So who knows? Maybe we will be able to explore the nostalgia department.
Well, it looks like he can go into Central Executive. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would imagine that's where most things in the oldest house would take place. Mm-hmm. But we know that the nostalgia department is in Central Executive, so could be.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to see more of it in Resonant.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because that's the one thing about Control that's always bothered me, is why can't I get back in there? Like, go there. I'm like trying to like figure out ways to like see in and things like that, and there's just nothing. They just have you completely blocked. Nope. Too bad. So yeah, hopefully we'll learn more. But why don't we get to some user comments and questions now, because we have a lot from the last episode. We actually asked some questions for listeners, and we got one really good response back. Actually, we got a few, but we only have time for a couple. So Jay, you want to read that first one?
Sure. In response to our last podcast, this user says, I think that yes, Darling deserves a shot at redemption, namely because he's not a remorseless monster. He didn't just blindly torture Dylan for fun. He was trying to protect the future of the Bureau. In the eyes of people like Darling and Trench, the Bureau is the only thing preventing some unfathomable entity or force from completely destroying our world. Trench even says, if the forces contained here escaped, we'd be dragged back into an age of superstition. And that's maybe the best possible outcome in that situation. All that said, the whole cracking a few eggs to make an omelet philosophy doesn't justify the long-term imprisonment, torture, and experimentation on a child. I do believe that part of why Darling gave up on and abandoned Dylan was because he saw him as a failure and blamed himself for it. He'd failed that kid and couldn't bear to look at his mistake in the eyes any longer. Beyond that, it really seemed like Darling had changed drastically after fully exposing himself to Hedron's resonance. But that scene with him and Zane kinda seems like he reverted entirely back to his usual self. Part of me also wonders if that scene was intended as more of a fun Easter egg than meant to be taken literally. So essentially, all of that's just a big yap to say, yeah, I think he's worthy of a redemption arc. I guess we'll see what really happens, because even Matt Peretta, in an interview with IGN, talked as if we'll only see Darling footage from the past in Resonant. I really hope that's not the only way he'll be present in the story. So this listener makes a lot of good points. He mentions the cracking a few eggs to make an omelet philosophy. It kind of makes me think of Darling and Trench as their mindset being the means justify an end.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, that's fine. I think it's pretty when it involves a child.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason to treat a child the way that they treated Dylan.
Yeah, I want to say, just based off of the trench calls and stuff that we get, he mentions the Prime Candidate program. He mentions that he's going to leave Darling in charge. But did he follow up? Did he know what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
Or did he just completely say, here you go, Darling, have fun, do this, make this happen, make this work, and I'm going to, I'm out. I'm not part of this, so this is all for you. But, there were complaints, investigations, ethics and stuff like that for multiple things against Darling, and that was one of them. But it doesn't really explicitly say if it made it to Trench. I think it all went through Kirkland because he did internal investigations.
Yeah.
So I want to say that Trench probably didn't know. I think he meant well,
Mm-hmm.
as far as for the Bureau's future to have a proper director to replace him.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like we've said before, we don't know that the board would even accept them if they really believe that the board is the one in control or of like appointing the director. No guarantees that they would choose the person that they chose.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say that he probably didn't even know the type of treatment Dylan was getting.
He probably didn't, and I would almost say that Trench is almost his fault.
Oh, he is
at fault as Darling.
Yeah.
Because, it was kind of a out of sight, out of mind thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I know he had mentioned, like, he didn't want to make the same mistake that he did with his family.
Mm-hmm.
But if he didn't want to make the same mistake, he would have at least checked in with Darling. I mean, he trusted Darling. So rather than Trench just dumping Dylan off to Darling and just, kind of looking the other way, he could have checked in with him, asked Darling, how are things going? And if things weren't going well, then Trench could have stepped in and tried to remedy it.
Yeah, I'm sure Trench wouldn't have wanted things to go the way they did.
Yeah.
But he kept himself disconnected. Probably didn't want to get attached to Dylan. He probably didn't want to have anything to do with kids. But in the process, that's where he made the same mistake, just in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
But Darlene, however, I think that he probably didn't have anything in mind other than, ooh, a new project,
Yeah.
Ooh, something new to figure out and discover or do, And training him to be the new director seems like it would have been the director's job,
Mm-hmm.
Train them to replace you, train them for, because Darling doesn't know anything about what it's like to be director.
Mm-hmm.
So what was he doing? He was trying to get, him to use his powers, and that's what everything up.
Mm-hmm.
That's where everything went wrong. So, I mean, Darlene obviously wasn't the right person for that job.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Don't you think that if you wanted someone to take over your position that you would train them yourself?
You would think so. I mean, yeah, and I know Trench said he didn't want to make the same mistake, but, I mean, he essentially did make the same mistake because, I mean, even though he trusted Darling, he should have probably done it himself. And he was the one that started the Prime Candidate program, and if he was hoping that Dylan would be one of the prime candidates, that he probably should have overseen it himself, made sure that nothing went wrong, make sure that Dylan didn't get the treatment that he did.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were talking about director failures on our live stream on Saturday. And we were talking about one of Jesse's could have been not reorganizing the different sectors. Like Arish, he takes over Marshall's job, head of operations. Now, we don't get to see like his official promotion or anything, but sounds like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That he did take Marshall's job, and that he's also head of security. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since, in the first game, we see everything that Marshall's in charge of, and it's a lot. I mean, Rish even says that, that she's a badass. And,
You've got to be tough.
Yeah, of everything that she's seen. So, it's got to be, some big shoes to fill for Rish.
Yeah, and then he also had to fill Salvador's.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know Salvador he had to oversee a lot. I mean, he took some rangers into the Panopticon after the Benikoff TV is what they say, but I think that maybe there was something a little more they were doing. However, you know, he had to oversee, you know, security across the board. You know, we meet Arish in the maintenance sector, but it doesn't mean he was only security chief of the maintenance sector. He was security chief, as far as we know, of everywhere. So one of our questions on our last podcast was, how do we believe Arish was involved with Dylan? Because, you know, they're calling security when Dylan gets out of control, right? You know, they got to be like, security, get in here, someone help us. That's got to be security's job. Who else would it be, right?
Yeah.
And Dylan drew that picture of Arish, so why? Did he have like a vision of him? I know we talked about this already, but we really didn't have, I don't think we really had anyone respond to that one. Not really.
Yeah, I don't think we did. But...
Yeah, I mean, we did actually. I take that back. We did, but it was kind of like a similar thing. Like, well, maybe, you know, he just, you know, I don't know. I think the person just said they weren't sure. Sorry, that they weren't sure either. It is a mystery. You know, did he have a vision of Arish, or did he actually know Arish somehow?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he would have some sort of interaction with Arish, you know, especially after Marshall being gone. And it makes sense that Arish would be next in line. And so, yeah, you know, when Dylan gets, you know, out of control or something, that Arish is probably the one that they call.
Yeah, definitely Salvador or Arish, although it sounds like they were really close. I mean, Arish worked right under him. So I'm going to say that I think that he at some point had some kind of contact or observed, you know, maybe them handle him when he was, you know, Dylan when he was out of control. The possibility that Dylan just had a vision of him and, you know, just kind of had this like awareness of him.
Yeah.
Why he drew the picture, we don't know.
Yeah.
Why Darlene sent them to the lake house of all the other stupid things he could do is unknown too, because he was drawing basically his stuff. You know, because there was the floating hiss. I mean, a lot of what he drew looked related to hiss, and he used the red and everything. And then Darling like sends it to the lake house, and he's like, "Oh, credit the artist as P6 or something like that."
Yeah.
In the document. So, what the? Come on, Dr. Darling. Like, where are your brains when you actually need them? You know. So yeah, that was a thing. I think that kind of just going back to my original point, that I think that the director's mistakes sometimes are just, you know, things that they just kind of easily overlook. And in a crisis situation, like with Jesse, I think they could have appointed someone to do one of those jobs. I think Arish probably, I'm going to say he probably was the better candidate for head of operations, but they really should have assigned someone to security, to replace him for security, because they obviously didn't. Yeah, I don't know if I'll say it or not, but it might be implied that it was a mistake. Jesse didn't reorganize departments; like, things just sort of fell into the laps of other people. I mean, she did officially promote Emily to head of research, but like, some of the other things might have just been neglected. Some of the other departments might have just been neglected to have, because a lot of lives were lost, you know. So probably a lot of like heads of whatever, you know, different divisions or departments or sectors might have gone missing and weren't replaced. I don't know. Really don't know what happened. I guess we'll find out in 6 years, or not in 6 years, but you know what happened within those 6 years. So for the other part of this user's first comment, it has to do with Darlene and Trench seeing the Bureau as the only thing preventing some unfathomable entity or force from completely destroying the world. I think that Trench believed that they were doing that, and probably were, you know. I don't know if Darlene saw it that way. Like, personally, I think he just saw the science and, like, whatever it takes, you know. I don't know if he was as concerned. It seems like he was more just like concerned with discovery and creation versus protecting the world.
Yeah, that is kind of what I was getting at out of Darling. I do think that Trench was probably more concerned with that, and when Emily had said like everything that they do at the oldest house is unprecedented,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Emily is kind of that same way, and I know we had talked to a previous podcast about whether she is the best person to be co-director. I mean, I get that Jesse trusts her,
Yeah.
but she does kind of have similar thinking to
Mm-hmm.
that of Darling.
Yeah, yeah. They're really just hell bent on like they want to
Uh-huh.
know everything, just like we do, right?
Yep.
We want to know. So I think that's my opinion of
Hmm.
Darling anyway in that regard. That he wasn't necessarily out to save the world. He just had his own agenda.
Yeah.
What served him, what excited him, what he wanted out of whatever research they were doing.
Hmm.
So so yeah. So let's see. The next part. About cracking a few eggs to make an omelet. Just don't make omelets, okay? Just don't. Let's just stay away from omelets, all of us from now on. No, but yeah, torturing a child, giving up on Dylan and blaming himself. Yeah, I think that I think the problem is that with Darling didn't seem to come any remorse, you know,
Hmm.
taking responsibility. It's never suggested that he took responsibility or had remorse or had like the urge or whatever to apologize like we would.
Hmm.
Like if you let someone down or you failed somebody or you put somebody through hell, and you were remorseful about it, you want to apologize, but he just never saw Dylan again.
Hmm. Yeah, I know in one of his recordings that he mentions that Dylan's a lost cause, but that's all he really says about it. He never
Yeah.
says anything like,
Like he's responsible.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it does seem like he doesn't have much remorse.
Right. Dylan's a lost cause, but not I'm a failure.
Yeah.
It's like Dylan was the failure. That really sucks to,
Hmm.
but everybody has different opinions about these. So, but let's see. The second part of this is about Darling exposing himself to Hedron. Now we talked about the Darling redemption thing last podcast, and we asked people if this is what this is about. Does he deserve redemption? And I've heard some people meaning read like in our comments and stuff talking about that in and of itself is redemption, that he saved the world, right? I don't think he was out to really do that. I think he was just obsessed by the science, by Hedron.
Yeah.
And this was going to be his adventure. I remember Emily's like, I'm sure as long as he can perceive his surroundings, I'm sure he's loving it, like wherever he's at, right? So, like, it doesn't, I don't know. He made some HRAs, yeah. It's like, oh, I'll make a few of these, before I go on my journey, and it's like, maybe I'll save a couple people. But, do you think that he actually did it as with the idea in mind to save the Bureau or to save anyone? Or did he do it for his own purposes, for science, for discovery?
Yeah, no, I don't think that Darling had any intentions of saving the world. I think that Trench had better intentions. He
Yeah.
mentions like with Northmore, after that happened, he started the Prime Candidate program. He didn't want the same thing. When he mentions his family, that he didn't want a recurrence of that, but
Yeah.
I think that he just went about it the wrong way.
Yeah, totally. I think that we probably can settle on that.
Yeah.
Like Trench did have good intentions.
Yeah.
But but he left Darlene in charge, which
Yeah.
was the mistake.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know what I was thinking, I think I mentioned this to you recently. Remember when Jesse first talks to Arish and he says that he saw Darlene and he was tearing his clothes off? And then we see in the videos that he made, he's tearing his clothes off. He's in his underwear and stuff, and he's like he's hot, And I don't mean that like physically, like, oh yeah. I mean like, like he's like the Northmore thing. His body temperature is out of control. He's ripping his clothes off, and you know what I mean. So I wonder if he gets altered.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea. I mean, it makes sense because after he exposed himself to Hedron, that there is a possibility that you become an altered individual. And who's to say that in Control Resonant that we do see him, as more than just an average human being, that he actually does have some sort of abilities.
If he's in that game, yeah. Like, what if his redemption is fighting alongside of Jesse and Dylan or whatever? Like, he has to help out or he has to do something. And as for the Dr. Darling reverting to type, yeah, I agree that TV on the, in Alan Wake 2, I think that, and I had actually answered this one, I think it was a lot of fan service. I think a big part of it was fan service, and then that there was something to add to the story. At least a little something. When Dr. Darling sees Zane, and when we're watching the TV in Alan Wake 2, and Zane's all like, oh, what is he? Like, he offers him a drink, and Darling's trying to figure out what to do, where they're at, and stuff like that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it could just be fan service. I think so. Just kind of like a little funny moment, when Zane says, "Oh, you've been working out your soul," and just kind of a little humor there.
Do you think it contribute anything at all to the story?
I mean, possibly, especially after
just the circumstance.
Yeah, just the circumstance. Yeah. After Kasserine had mentioned about Alan Wake being in Control Resonant, maybe it has something to do with Alan being in the game. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
We'll find out soon. Don't have that many weeks left to go. So yeah, why don't we move on to the next one?
Okay.
Anyone who knows me knows that I hate redemption through death. I think it's lazy. I think it's the worst part of the American monolith. I don't want it, but I think that it's the only way I will accept a Darling redemption. I generally prefer characters having to put in the GD. I think we can all figure out what that means. Work, if they want to be redeemed. But with Darling, I think working for it would lead to a return of prestige and status. And I think that him holding either of those things is fundamentally dangerous, no matter how he's changed. The thing about Darling that really gets me is how unnecessary his cruelty is. He's got this kid who is shown to be open despite his fear when he first arrives, who is absolutely desperate for Darling's attention. He's got this entity that only cares about stopping the hiss, who willingly helps Darling prepare for it, and he tortures them both anyway because it's the best way to get answers to his questions. Knowledge will come before any life, but that doesn't mean that he's antagonistic to life. He does genuinely want to keep the people of the Bureau alive. Does he see any of them as people? Probably not. The passivity and banality of Dylan's torture kind of wrecks my brain to think about. The psychological damage of being unable to see the sun, being kept in extreme isolation, of being under constant invasive observation, is incalculable, and no one has to lift a finger to do it. It's almost worse than it is passive. Physical abuse would at least be attention, but what he gets is abject dehumanization. When he tells Jesse he's not Dylan, Trench and Darling made sure of that, he means that. Yeah, so I agree with a lot of this, actually. I think this is one of my favorites. I think that redemption through death is probably Darling's only way. If he's going to have a redemption arc, if we're ever going to see him again.
Yeah.
Now, it's like that last comment said, and I did forget to mention this, that Matthew Peretta had said that we're not going to see Darling, or that we may not, or whatever. I guess he can't give it all away, but I think that the biggest part we're going to see of him is old stuff, old recordings, like the presentations and stuff. Now, is it before Dylan or after Dylan? So the time frame of whatever we see of Darling is going to be kind of interesting, to see like if they're from whatever dimension he's at, or if they're from, some other time before he, went on his little journey and ended up where he ended up.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with what they say as well. I do think that Darling will get redemption just based on what Kasserine had said in the rapid fire questions. Whether he deserves it is a whole nother story.
Right, exactly. Because I don't think that exposing yourself to Hedron and being blown away to anywhere is good enough.
Exactly.
Especially since wherever he, seems to be, unfortunately, I mean, we don't know 100%, but what we see, it seems like he's just too happy. He just doesn't deserve happiness.
He really doesn't.
Opinion.
No, he's kind of a.
But yeah, exactly. So it definitely, everything unnecessarily cruel and on all that. Yeah, definitely 100%. And I don't think that it's very easy to forgive. So, yeah. Does he care about any of the people? Probably not. Yeah, I think our position is pretty clear on this, that we really don't think Darling sees anyone of any significance, you know, like human lives, other human lives just don't really seem to matter to him. At least what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Maybe later in the future he'll say, oh yeah, because I don't think he has a family even. I mean, he doesn't talk about a family or anything. He's got no one to love.
Yeah.
He loves his science. That's
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, on that that same line of thought, like, I don't think he has any kids either.
Right.
Otherwise, he probably would have treated Dylan a lot better, you know, with him coming to the oldest house as a child.
Right. Exactly. And you would think that an adult's natural instinct would be to protect and nurture a kid, not to torture them.
You would think.
But, you know, he's a scientist.
Yeah.
All scientists are like that. No, I'm kidding. All scientists at the FBC. Now, remember, Langston says this place has a way of changing people and not for the better. Yeah. Maybe he's been there so long that it has changed him in a way that is not for the better.
Yeah.
Maybe people are stripped of their morals.
Yeah,
you know?
That very well could be.
And all they're doing is serving the science and the oldest house or the board or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people we come in contact with, it does seem that way. I mean, I'd say Langston might be one of the few exceptions, maybe Underhill as well. But yeah, it seems like a lot of them, they're just so dedicated to their work and that's all they ever think about.
Or they complain a lot, like, like the NPCs and the executive sector. With the one dude, he's like, they should have safe rooms, especially for executives. You know, they're too small. You know, it's like, all right, dude. You know, it's the Titanic all over again, right? Like, are there lifeboats for first class?
Right.
So, yeah, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe that whole thing about it changing people probably does apply. Yeah, when he tells Jesse that he's not Dylan, Trench and Darling made sure of that. Yeah, 100% in agreement. Again, more Darling than Trench, but Trench did fail him in a big way by not being involved.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, Dylan also mentions in one of the recordings where, you know, he's asked to describe his surroundings, and he says a prison. And that makes a whole lot of sense because, yeah, in prison, like, they dehumanize you and, you know, instead of giving you a name, they give you a number.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense that Dylan says that.
Yep. He's HP6
Yep.
at that moment.
Yeah.
His P6. But, yeah, so why don't we go ahead and we have one more.
Okay.
And I really actually adore this comment because it has to do with, we're going back now to the episode, I can't remember which episode it was, but it was the one where we addressed the inverted T on the exit signs.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been watching the spoilers, I guess, because pretty much everything is spoilers now, then we get more of an idea of what the infinity mirrors with the exit sign, we get more of an idea of what that's about. But this person had a really great idea that had to do with the gravity anomalies and that exit sign and how it could, you know, connect. So why don't we go ahead and read that?
Okay. I have a theory about the upside down T in the word exit. When all the letters in exit are capitals, it looks exactly the same when you view it through a mirror except for the T. That is when the mirror is put up against the word. So imagine looking at a reflection of a forest off the surface of a lake. You see inverted trees above a sky. Perhaps the threshold that is creating the AWE and warping gravity is above NYC and is reflecting some objects that way when you look at it. An additional comment from this user says, it's because there are thresholds all throughout the oldest house. When you walk in from outside for the first time, exit is spelled correct. But maybe the exterior door of oldest house is a threshold to our world that the oldest house doesn't occupy.
Yeah, like I said, I love that. I really love that user's comment. Thank you for leaving it. And again, the whole gravity anomaly thing. So that would make sense to me, especially, you know, how like when you see in Resonant all worlds on top of each other and stuff, like, I mean, it sounds like that could be a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, you know, again, like, there's not a whole lot to say for me, I don't have a lot to say about this comment except for I think it's great, and I think that it's very, very possible.
Yeah, definitely. I do have one thing in particular, but it's very spoilery. So if we do a spoiler
that's
section,
right.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Then I'm going to reserve it for that.
That's probably why I don't have much more to say.
Yep.
And I don't know if this, actually what the spoiler is came out after this person's comment.
Yeah.
So yeah, we probably shouldn't elaborate on any further. It's going to be hard to continue to do podcasts during those weeks when Control the digital download has been out and we've played it.
Right.
And then we need to do at least 3 more weeks of podcasts with the knowledge of what happens and try to pretend that we don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to go. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But our listeners do know that comments section and even our lives are kind of like at your own risk. You might we can't control what people leave, what comments people leave. We don't delete comments unless it's necessary to, if they're abusive to us or to other users or whatever, which luckily we haven't had to do that often, but I think maybe once on each channel we've had to do it.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it's usually everybody's really mature, super intelligent, wonderful comments, and it's a good place to be. Our lives are also really a great place to be. We have, again, we always say we have a lot of fun, but we also have a lot of discussion too. So beyond our podcasts, if you want more opinions and comments and ideas and, what more of what we're thinking, and just, if you can check out our lives, do it, because we talk about a lot in our lives.
We do, yeah, and if you're not averse to spoilers, then we do get a little bit into spoilers in our lives.
Little bit,
yeah, not too much, but yeah, we have some great conversation. And if you guys haven't joined us at all in the lives, definitely consider doing so.
And if you're lucky, we will talk about random things like Cheetos. And that was, what was it at our live? It was like, does Alan Wake eat Cheetos or something? We'll kind of get off track and talk about just random things, but it's fun.
It is.
But we always come back to, the game. But a lot of it right now is questions and comments and ideas about Resonant. But also, we've been getting talking a lot about Quantum Break.
Yeah, we've been playing through it a second time.
And we talked about it on the podcast.
We did, yeah. So we want to get all of the dialogue from Nick, and to see if there's anything, any connection with that and Control Resonant.
Right, and I would say, actually, I'm gonna say that yes, Remedy did put out, and probably a lot of people, but there's people that are avoiding this thing, so I'll just kind of be, I'll just surface level. Remedy did put out some information about Dylan's new looks. Okay, like the different ways you can customize his look. Personally, I think I'm going to stick with what they show in the trailers, like his FBC thing. But there is one thing that I think might be a callback to, one of two things, but the first time I thought of Clay Stewart. Now I have a different idea. And it applies to Quantum Break.
Yeah.
And it applies to Nick. And we talked about this on our live. So listeners, if you can join in on our live, Saturday night, they start at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and they go to 2 a.m. So we're in 4-hour block. We have one intermission. And so people can join in anytime. You don't have to do start to finish, but you can hear some more, basically kind of more podcasting in a way, but just on the fly, just open. And I hope entertaining. If you can put up with my swearing. it's not a family friendly live stream, okay? But no, it's not terrible though, but we have a lot of conversation going, so it is fun, and you're getting probably, I think we do even elaborate some more on things that have been on our podcast, so it's all good. It's all good. It's worth checking out. So aside from that, listeners, if you're new, we do these podcasts every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They're also on different podcast platforms like Spotify and, YouTube Music now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music Apple Podcasts, sorry. all the things. There's like 17 different platforms that we're on, so you can also hear them there as well.
Yeah, I think that's it. I enjoyed talking about the nostalgia department and addressing these user questions. A lot of fun.
Right. So anyone that has any feedback on the nostalgia department, we're trying to kind of put some of this other stuff to rest. So if we can move on a little bit, yeah, let us know what you think about the nostalgia department and what we read from the book today. That'd be awesome. So until next time, take care, Remedy fans.